Okay. All right. So just a quick, let's look at a recap about what we have done. What did we do last week?
We looked at the responding skills.
Yes, we looked.
How did we do it? Things like that.
Okay, we looked at responding skills. That's right. Okay. What about responding skills? What were the different things that we looked at in responding skills?
We looked at its purpose.
Okay.
Then how the different categories of responses, like reflecting the content, the feeling, the meaning, then
Okay.
summarizing it, etc. Yeah.
Okay, right. Thank you, Natasha. All right. So, were you able to do some bit of practicing? You started, but not complete. Okay, so give me what you started with, Asapu. Can you use the mic so the others can hear also?
That you have to share our own example.
Louder, louder. Little bit louder so even I can hear. Yeah, okay.
You told no, ma'am, you have to give our own example.
Ah,
One incident happened between me and my dad.
okay.
So on that I'm working according to that.
You responded to your dad like how we
Yeah.
how we learned. Okay, very nice. And what was the response that you got from your father when you responded differently?
It is in positive way, ma'am.
Sorry?
It is in positive way only.
It is a positive way.
But
Okay.
that incident is very wrong thing I did. But
Uh,
he guided me in positive way,
okay.
not in harsh, in
Okay,
common.
because you responded in
I-
what way?
I responded in polite way only.
In a polite way.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you use some of these skills?
Yeah.
You did.
I'm working on it, ma'am. I will submit. You can
Okay,
check.
you'll tell me later. Okay, all right. Okay, anybody else? Did some homework? With each other also was fine. When each of you all are talking to each other, just using some of those skills that we learned is also good enough. Okay, then we should practice a lot today, okay? We'll have some practice today. All right. Okay, so we're going to go into the next skill, which is questioning skills. Okay. Now this, I'm on page, if you want to follow through, it's on page 36. But there's a whole lot that you can find on the PPT. Unfortunately, none of you have your phones. Okay, but page 36. Okay. So we're going to look at the skills of questioning. I'll just upload, just share my screen as well. Just a minute. Okay, so I think it's up. Right. Okay, so we're going to focus today on questioning skills. Now, do we need training on how to question?
Yes, we
Need
do.
training on how to question?
Absolutely.
Okay, so why? Why so? Why should we know what is a good way to question?
We are not being being pushy or trying to pry into their lives, but in a way that they will be open to sharing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you want to, so what you're saying is to learn how to use some of these questioning skills in a way that doesn't look pushy or doesn't look like
Yes.
a policeman.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that it comes across as more curiosity or more coming out of empathy rather than why did you do that? What did you do? Who did you go with? Like a parent would ask a child. Right, so it is very important to understand how do we use these skills, the questioning, how do we use questioning skills. So what's the purpose of these skills? So it's actually, okay, Why do you ask questions? Why do you generally ask questions? To know
To get
answers. To get answers. Okay. Any other reason?
more understanding into what the person is saying.
Okay, to get more understanding into what the person is saying. Remember, it's just not, when you're saying questions, it's just not asking about certain details of a situation. Like, for example, I'm going to ask you, okay, when did you all start class today? Who came in the first hour? What did you study? Those are factual questions. But can I ask other questions? Is it possible for me to ask other questions other than the situation? I can say, so what did you learn today? What meaning did you get out of the last hour? How are you feeling today? Okay, were you able to pick something for your life ahead in the last hour? So there are many kind of questions I can ask, not just to find out details or information, but to also get to know a person a lot more deeper. All right. So similarly, these questions help, number one, to guide the counseling conversation. So if I'm going to ask you, you've come to me for some help, and you're telling me about college. With my questioning, once you're done with talking about college, I can actually move the conversation to probably something else, right? Maybe about your home. So I use those questions to direct a counseling conversation. And so it actually helps in understanding your counseling story a lot more better. Okay? So that's why it's important to do it in a way that's helpful, that's more structured. All right? So when is it used? It's generally used partly, and I would say it's partly to gather information. It's also used through the entire counseling process, specifically also when you want the person to move into action also. Okay, so yes, it's not just used when you're gathering information, but also helping them to think over something. All right, so let's say, you come to me with a with a problem with a friend. All right. So I may first ask you about what happened, what was the circumstance of that situation, what did that friend say, what did you say? These are all information I'm gathering from that. Okay. But I could also ask a question, okay, now since you are in this place, what would you like to do? Or what do you see yourself doing in order to repair this relationship? So these are questions that's actually not something that's happened, but something that's making you think towards an action point. Okay, so now you're here, you've had this problem with a friend. How do you see this go forward? Or what would you like to see in your relationship with your friend? So all of this is actually helping you to think. And these questions are these kind of questions are also important at the stage of an action, where you're actually getting them to think, to help them to come up with certain answers. Okay? Are you all here? Or you all are gone somewhere through the questions I've asked you all? Okay, come back, all of you. Okay, so it's mainly used to gather information, but it can also be used through the entire process, also at the time when you are seeking for an action. All right?
And
okay.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yeah.
What if the counselor is not open to answering this? If you feel that the person is just very closed.
Answering what? Sorry?
Like when you question them and you
Okay.
feel the counselor is very hesitant, doesn't want to answer.
Okay. So at this point of time, what are you doing is you're actually going back to that first skill of attending. Okay. So you've asked a question and they don't answer, or they're saying they're quiet.
Yeah.
All right. So how could you attend at that time? So you're going back to another skill, right? Because you have noticed that they seem uncomfortable, or they are guarded, or they are resistant. Something is happening there. So how do you make note of it at that point of time? What could you ask or what could you say?
Um,
Try.
I think
I'd like you to try. Yeah. So what could you say?
maybe just ask general, how was the day today? Are you feeling all right? Or something general, just to make them loosen up, become more open to talking.
Okay. So when you are, let's say when you are asking a certain question, like you're saying, tell me, you told me about this specific relationship. Okay, no, you told me about this specific relationship. Would you like to tell me more? You've asked that question, and let's say they don't answer. So
Yeah.
would it be appropriate at that point of time to ask them about their day or ask them about their whereabouts? It may not be, right?
True.
Right? So you've asked a question and they're not responding. So in order to get them, maybe not to answer, but to attend to what they are feeling, how would you respond, or how would you attend? Come on, students, come on. Time to get up. Okay, how? Good attempt. How? So let's say we're talking about a relationship, about the person, right? So how would you rephrase it? Come on. Others, it's going to be one awkward silence like this.
We'll ask him about the discomfort. Are you feeling discomfort to share this information? Can we talk about regarding to this matter next week?
Very
Next
good.
session?
So that's good. So over here, you're not asking another question. You have made an observation. Remember attending by observation? So you observed that he's probably uncomfortable or resistant or whatever. But you cannot guess it. You may not be able to guess it correctly. So what do you say? You can say something like, I sense a discomfort in you when I ask that question. Is that right? So you're actually checking, you are attending, you've looked and you've seen that there is some discomfort. You've picked that up. You're saying, I kind of sense or I feel that you are a little uncomfortable. Is that true? I'm checking. So the person may say yes, or they may say, no, I'm not uncomfortable. This is very confidential information. Okay? Okay. So they said, this is confidential information. Now what would you say?
I think I'll say I respect that.
Okay. Nice. All right. So I respect that. So do you, what he's only told you, she's only told you that it's confidential. She didn't say she doesn't want to share with you. Right? So you can pick up on that and say, okay, yeah, that's a good line. I respect that. Do you have any concerns about what you're going to share with me will probably go outside? So I want to address that fear. Say, do you have any concern? Or I might say, I think I sense you have a concern that what you're going to share with me is going to go outside of this room. Or I would say, do you have any concerns about this going outside the room?
Sister,
Right? So they
can
may, yeah.
you can say that you can be sure that nothing will go out from here, that like you would really give courage and say that you will keep it confidential.
Yes. So if they do respond with a yes, that's what one thing I would say is that I want to assure you that whatever you share here with me will be confidential. You can be open up to share at your pace and at your time. Right? So then they may say, yeah. And then I say, so would you like to share that with me? So they may say yes or no. Now you've understood. If they will continue. If they're not, then you take it and say, we could do it at whenever you are comfortable or whenever you're okay to bring that up. So you respect that. Okay? But it's important to come to that point of understanding. So your questions can help in many things, even to provide this kind of a clarity. Does that make sense? Okay. So what does questioning do? Like the slide says, can assist to clarify information that at first may seem ambiguous to the counselor. Right? It's not, you're not able to really pick up why a person is responding a certain way, and that's what we call as ambiguous. And that's why, your questioning can help that. Okay. So here's an example or of how you can ask some of those questions, like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand, would you please repeat that? Or what do you think about what I just said? Would you give me an example of what you meant by? So these actually help you to clarify that which is not very clear. All right. What else does questioning do? It actually helps to self-explore. Remember, the first stage in the counseling process is what? Exploration. So it actually helps them to explore. So here are some examples. Okay. What further thoughts do you have about this person your parents want you to marry? Right? So you're actually getting them to think a little bit more about the thoughts they have about the person they are going to marry. These are only examples, okay? Another example is, you mentioned that your father always made you feel important. What did you mean? All right? Or what are you feeling as we are talking about this issue? So at every time, you're helping your counselee to go back into their thoughts, their feelings, their understanding of the situation, and give you some kind of a clarity. Okay? The next one, it encourages your counselee to actually talk. It's an invitation. When you are asking them good questions, it's an invitation to talk. Okay? Like, for example, you said something about your sister a little while ago. Are you interested in telling me about her now? Right? So it aids, you're actually being curious about what's going on with them, and you're helping them to make that kind of a conversation. It also helps to open up new areas of discussion. They may be talking about one specific area, but you are helping with some other area of discussion. Like here it says, you are very disappointed at the way you are treated at office. How do you feel at home? All right. So that's how you look at new areas of discussion. Okay. So there are different kinds of questions. Okay. Your questioning generally should be productive. Okay. So if you want your questions to be productive, do you know the kind of, no. How do you start a question generally? What are some of the words you use to start the question? Which, why, how, what, who, where, when, right? Huh? Will. Okay. So what will give you more than one word answers? Which of these questions will give you more than one word answers? Even do, no? Do you? Okay. So which words will give you more than one word answers? Huh? Why? Okay. What? How? When we won't give you a one word answer. When will give you, when was it? Yesterday. Right? Do you want to do this? No. Right? Will you do this? No. So your questions should be should be worded in such a way that actually helps them to not just give one word answers. Okay? And we will look at open and close-ended questions. But a productive questioning, first one energizes some kind of a thought. Okay? So I'll ask you two questions. I could ask you, do you like counseling class? What will all of you say? Yes. But I'm going to ask you, what do you think about counseling class? That's when nobody will answer anything, no? Because you have to think. You have to think about the good things or the bad things in that. So it energizes a thought, right? So even when you're learning to question, putting forward a question that really makes them actually think, and through what your counselor is saying, you're able to pick up a lot more of meat and flesh rather than just a yes or a no. Okay, so some examples are, what makes you think so? So you will say, okay, do you like counseling class? You say yes. I say, okay, why did you say that? Or what makes you like it so much? Right, so I'm actually digging deeper. Maybe we should have that conversation after this. You dig a little deeper about what is it that you are, you're thinking about. Okay, like for example, your counselor comes in and let's say says a lie to maybe their spouse or their parent. Okay, so I can ask, did you lie? Say yes. What is a more productive question that you can ask? Okay, what made you lie? Okay, that's one. Anything else? How can you energize their thought? No. We know all that. We know the situation. We know why why they lied. All of that. Okay. All right. But how do you dig a little? How can you frame a question to energize a thought? This is
In what way did this lying help you?
okay. Nice. Okay. In what way did this lying help you? All right. If you needed to put a more positive question, what is the opposite of lying? Truth, right? Okay. Now try and figure out a question that will actually help them to think about not lying. What would it be?
Sister, I would say, what would be your honest answer?
What would be your honest answer? Okay. All right. Okay.
Perhaps by sharing the truth, you don't have to cover it up, and it wouldn't stress you this much.
But that's a statement, no?
Okay, so perhaps had you spoken the truth, don't you think you would be in a better off position to cover it up, or not to cover it up so much?
So you're saying if you had said the truth, what do you think would have happened? I think that's what. Okay. All right. Great. Good. Or I'd ask a question something like, if you could be honest next time, what would you see differently? So you're actually helping them to even, so when I'm saying if you could be honest next time, what would help you differently, you're already going into a place of helping them see, okay, being honest can get me ABCD benefits, rather than saying, this is also a good question, what did you get from lying, or what happened since you lied? Because that helps them to be aware, but that doesn't help them to change. So if you want them to change, you can twist the question and say, if you could be honest next time, what do you think would change? Right? So then they would probably bring up certain solutions that's coming from that answer itself. Okay? So to energize the thought, that's very important. To get your question should always help them to have thoughts that are much more open and helps them to dig deeper. All right. Second, it should help to express feelings. Okay. So here, the very common ones, what makes you feel this way? What is happening between you and your husband right now? Okay. So it should not just go, remember, whenever we're looking at trying to understand someone, we're looking at understanding them at different, remember the 5 areas of functioning? You remember first class? What are the 5 areas? Huh? Spiritual, physical, emotional, rational, volitional, right? So especially the 4 ones, that is, they're emotional, that is, how are you feeling? They're rational, what are you thinking? Okay. The 4th is volitional, how did you decide that? Spiritual, what does it make you feel? What does it make you feel spiritually? How does it make you feel morally? So these questions are really important to get them to actually think. And that this is very, very important in counseling. It's just not knowing a situation, but it's digging deeper. Remember I talked about the onion, that you're going inner, deeper and deeper and deeper through these different levels. And that's what you ask. All right. So expressing feelings is a productive question. So, a productive question also is when you're able to link certain comments. Now, what does that mean? Is that your counselee may be saying 2-3 different things. Like in this example, here the counselor is saying, my mother constantly calls me dumb. I guess maybe I don't work hard enough, but the work is too hard for me. This is what the counselor is saying. So the counselor is asking this question. I hear something in what you are saying. I wonder if you seem to agree with your mother. All right. So the counselor actually just said 2 statements. Okay. My mother calls me dumb and I don't work hard because the work is too hard for me. So here the counselor is actually linking 2 things and asking, I wonder if you seem to agree with your mother that you are dumb. Right. So this actually helps, instead of saying, you know, your mother has called you dumb, you think you are dumb, and you are believing that. So if I were to make a statement like that sometimes, it could seem quite, quite stark and quite harsh. All right, for the counselee to just say, oh, my mother called me dumb, even I think I'm like that. So when you're actually making a statement, when you're putting it through a question, it doesn't look that harsh. It doesn't look as if you've got a punch on your nose, right? Your counselor is asking you, I wonder whether you're also agreeing with your mother. And they may think and say, yeah, now since you've asked me that, yeah, I think I am. So do you see that they're able to realize it for themselves rather than you making a statement and saying, your mother called you dumb, you don't work hard, so even you think you are dumb. You get that? Are you all with me? I'm seeing a lot of glassy eyes today.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
What do you mean when you say I hear something in what you are saying?
Sorry, come again. Repeat your question, Natasha.
Yeah, what do you mean when you say I hear something in what you are saying? The first the counselor's statement.
I hear something in what you're saying. That's what it said, not learn. It says I hear.
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
So what I mean by that is, from what the counselee has told me, I have picked up, or this is what I've sensed, or this is what I have assumed. That's what it means by I hear something in what you're saying. It's just a language that you're using.
Okay.
Okay? Not that.
And depending on the age of the counselee,
yeah,
and in the mental framework, shouldn't we change our question so that they understand what we are saying? Because here it seems like the counselor believes that yes, you seem to agree with your mother.
So that's the question that's coming here. That the counselor senses that she agrees with her mother with the statement that she's made. So, and that's why the question comes, I wonder if you seem to agree with your mother. Rather than saying, I think you are agreeing with your mother. So
I think we should say this with some expression that, do you agree with what your mother is saying? Something like that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's coming with, so going back to the attending, you're attending in all times, not just, at certain points of time, but even when you're asking a question, you're actually modulating your voice, all of that. Absolutely. Natasha, you got it right.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are we all here? Yeah. Okay. We'll do next hour full time. We will have role plays. Okay. The next one is to redirect. How do you use a productive question to redirect? For example, let's say your counselee is focusing on a certain issue that is moving away from the main issue that you probably see is very, very stark. Like in this example, the mother, let's say a mother or a father, I think it's a mother here. Yeah. So a mother comes and talks about how the son is maybe not studying, or has some behavioral problem. All right, the mother is come and saying, my son has these kind of issues. It's a lot of problems. She's kind of described it. Now, in your assessment, you've also noticed that there is significant struggle between the father and the mother in the marriage, between the parents. You have noticed that, and she's kind of told you that. But every point of time, she's focusing back just on the issue of the son. And you're able to see that a lot of the behavioral problems that the son is coming up with is largely because of what's happening in the house between the father and the mother. All right, but your counselee is focusing only on the son and saying that if he gets okay, if he's fine, then everything else will be fine, which may not be true. So in your questioning, you are redirecting. And that's when you probably ask a question, is it possible that you focus on your son more to avoid what is happening between you and your husband? Okay? Or you could even bring it up as a statement and say that, while you're talking about your son, while the focus is a lot on your son, do you sense that we need to probably look back at what's happening between you and your husband? Right? So when you're adding that question, you're actually helping the counselee to, one, know that you have observed something and that you've brought it out, and that is something that requires attention. So through these kind of questions, you can redirect it to what's happening with another area of their lives that may be contributing to the current situation that they've come in. Okay, so these are what we call as productive questions. Some of this, when you know, or when you're able to pick up from the assessment that there is something else that's the problem, but they're focusing on something smaller, that's the concern. I'll give you another example. Let's say a teenage kid comes to you and he's lying. All right, the problem is lying. But all that he's focusing on is, no, I lied because my mother, always treats me is partial to my sister. So what is his focus? Is external. His focus is on his mother. But what are you attempting to do? You want to bring him back to really look at him, his own thoughts, what he's going through in his phase of lying. Okay, because that's the focus. You're not trying to change the mother. You're trying to look and help him to personalize the problem for himself. So sometimes it has to come back to a redirection, especially when they're blaming someone else for their problem, or they think that that's something else is the issue rather than something that seems much more stark and much more wider about what the concern is. So that's when you use these kind of questions to redirect. Okay? Yeah.
Most scenarios, a counselor will be determining which is on first priority and second priority.
No, it's not. It's not that the counselor is determining. The counselor will need to elicit that there can, which has to be addressed, right? Because even though your counselee may come and say, I only want to address my issue with my son. I don't want to address my marriage. All right. So that may be the initial goal. So you can share with them of how the impact is still there. Right? That okay. So, or I may ask a question like, fine, by resolving your son's issue, by not going into, let's say, your issues in marriage, do you think the entire situation at home will be resolved? Right? So whatever answer they give, you try and pick that up a little bit more, right? Because you're seeing a contribution there. It's something that you've picked up, maybe your counselor has not picked up. But if they say, I don't want to work on it, you're giving them a understanding that it has an impact, and that at some point of time we may need to go back to that. But at this point, we can focus on this. So you're giving them your thoughts and your ideas about what should also be looked into. Okay? All right. Okay. What are some unproductive questions? Unproductive questions are when you're picking on the client. Like, what is the matter with you? You're telling the teenage child, what's the matter with you? How can you lie like this? All right. Or why do you always say that? Or why don't you ever listen to what I say? See, this generally happens in a lot of situations, especially when a counselor is not trained. Right? Because a lot of times counselees will come back doing their own thing. And what do we generally tend to say? Counselor. Yeah. So you will say, see, if you don't listen to me, there's no point coming, right? That's what a lot of untrained counselors say. If you don't listen to me, if you want to do your own thing, why are you coming? So you're not a parent, remember that. So you do not pick at your client. Now, in case, or even if, or let's say they come in not doing or not doing things that they decided in the last counseling session, even when they come to you, how do you practice non-judgmental attitude and acceptance? How do you practice it? What would you say? You understood my question? You didn't
We could understand how you feel. I can see how you feel.
Okay. All right. Okay. So my question was, let me give an example. So I'm going to take you, Vimal, as my example. So Vimal and I discussed, and Vimal said, in the first session, he said, okay, ma'am, I'm going to try and mingle with all of my classmates. He says it, okay? And then he goes, and the next session he comes and says, I didn't want to mingle. I didn't, I got angry with all of them and I shouted at them. All right? So that's the example. Now, if I were to say, what, Vimal? I told you, we spoke last time. No, you said you'll go talk to them. Why are you doing this right now? You're making a mess of your own life. Is that something I should be saying, or should I be saying something else? So what is that something is what I'm asking. What should you say?
Sister, can we say that how can we move forward? Ask the person only, like, how can we move forward from here?
Okay, how can we move forward from here? Okay, all right. What should I address before that? I should address something before that.
Vimal, what scared you from going and talking to people?
Exactly. So you need to understand, why did he not follow up with what he said, but not in the way I said earlier. You know what, Vimal, you didn't do it. We had discussed and you're not doing. If you don't do this, it's up to you, But I would like to understand what went wrong. So maybe I would ask Vimal. I said, Vimal, I do sense that there was some difficulty. What was the difficulty, or what was your concern, or what were were there any fears that you had? You seemed very confident that you would do it the last time. I want to understand what happened the last 1 week, right? So I'm actually helping him to know his own thoughts. All right. So you're not picking at the client, but you're actually getting to understand why he did not follow up with something he didn't do. Right. And then you can ask the question, Gertrude, as you say, how could we move forward from this? What could we think of to move forward from this? So that's a great question. But initially, you need to get to understand their thoughts and their feelings about it. Okay. Next one is called a wool gatherer. What's a wool gatherer? A wool gatherer is when you really don't have anything to ask. That is, do you have to share a room with your brother? Do you have a TV and a fridge too? You're asking irrelevant questions. Okay, is what a wool gatherer is. Simply because you have to spend that 40 minutes of talking to them than chumma asking some questions that look as if they're important, which absolutely have no value. All right, those are what we call as wool gatherers. Come again?
Counsel will find it like really not relevant, and they themselves will try to.
Maybe not all counselees. They may think that okay, I may have to ask this question. I mean, if they're smarter ones, they'll say, what is the relevance of this? They may ask you that, all right? Okay. So what are some characteristics of some good questions? Okay. One, it should be used as instruments to open channels of communication, not just to interrogate or to question. It should not be something used, like I said, it's not like you're not there like a policeman. So you have to be extremely careful about that. Okay. You're also when you are asking questions and when they're answering, you are interspersing active listening with questions. You're saying, oh, is that so? Oh, that must have been tough. That shows you're actively listening. Remember some skills of responding with active listening? We said that, right? You're paraphrasing, you're summarizing, you're clarifying. All of those happens in between all of this, where you're actively listening. Questions must follow on from a response and must encourage them to build upon their last response. Now, I'm asking Vimal about let's say, his thoughts. Okay, so he's saying, Mame, when I'm sitting in class, I have thoughts of fear. Okay, so that's his last response. My next question should have a link to that, what he said. Oh, fearful thoughts? Would you elaborate on that? Right? But if he were to say, but if I were to ask him instead, okay, do you also have different kind of thoughts when you are at home? Remember, he said, I have fearful thoughts when I'm sitting in class. And I need to pick on that and help the next question. So I'd say, oh, thoughts? Yeah, you could say, since when, or would you like to elaborate, or that must be difficult, would you like to share that with me? So sticking on that and moving it from one place to another. Okay, so your questions always should, looking at the last question is what should guide you into your next question. Okay, at the end of questioning, to clarify a situation, clarify it by summarizing. So once you've asked your question, you must respond with summarizing. That is, you're gathering all what you've heard, all the information you've heard, and you're bringing it back as a summary. Okay. What is the time? We have only 5 more minutes. But next class, we will start with this role play. Okay. So any questions here? Any questions on questioning? There are more, but I just want to do probably a role play before we move into the next one.
Ma'am, for now,
Yeah.
as students, we are putting each time's lesson into separate blocks. We are not connecting them, you know.
Absolutely.
So practically, how do you do that?
So, and that's why we need practice. Because you would notice that, you know, when in your practice, you're not saying, okay, I have to attend, now I have to respond, now I have to question. It flows in one from the other. So you use a lot of your feel on doing that rather than looking at it like compartments. Okay. So I'm trying to make it easier for you all to know that this is like, you know, it flows one into the other, and it's not like chunks of different things that we are doing. So every time you're putting forth a question, you try and remember and see, okay, how is my question going to help the person, you know, answer? Right? Now, when they've said a question, when they've said an answer, should I ask another question or should I be responding? So I go with the feel of it, right? Let's say I've asked 2-3 questions and maybe the counselor is beginning to cry. Will I ask a question then? No.
No.
I will respond. I say, okay, these questions probably seem to bring up a lot of emotions for you. I can see that you're very disturbed. So I will respond. Right? And then they may say certain things. Yes, this has been really hard. It's bringing up a lot of my past. I'm remembering all of the old trauma. So I won't ask my next question. I'll say, yeah, it must be really hard. It must be really brave on you to actually think of it. So I'm going to stay there for a while before I can move to my next question.
Mhm.
So you get that? So it comes out of practice. It comes out of a certain feel also. So look at, and I know sometimes when we are doing these kind of role plays, it's like, oh, let me ask the right question. How am I? And that's why role plays are not, what do you say, completely natural, right? But we don't have any other way of doing it but to practice. Yeah.
Counselor, not all questions need not be comfortable to the counselee, no, ma'am.
No,
It can
not at
also
all.
be something which makes them uncomfortable, but at least to get to the core of the issue,
Absolutely.
you can.
Absolutely. Right?
Choosing to respond, not to respond, lies on the counselor.
Lies on the
The
counselor. Yeah.
counselor goes ahead and.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just recently, I think I'm trying to remember because when you said that conversation, yeah, okay, I remember. So with a specific counseling, I had a conversation about so the situation was that his spouse didn't want to have children. Okay, but he wanted to have children, and what was happening was that he had suppressed the anger that he felt towards his wife because she didn't want to have children, and which wasn't very evident to him, but he suppressed that anger, and especially when family and his parents would ask him about it, he said, inside I would be seething with anger, but outside I would give a very, very fake response of support to my wife. Okay, so that's what the situation was. And so we discussed this. When we began to discuss this, I asked him how he felt. And I said, I sense that you're grieving something, that you're grieving the reality that you can't have a child. I said, I sense it. And then it took him some time, and he said, he didn't say anything. He said, okay, maybe. Okay. And we finished the session. When we had the next session, he told me, he said, from what you shared, it brought back a lot of pain. So I did bring a lot of pain through that question. It became very clear to him that he was actually harboring a lot of anger towards his wife, which he couldn't express because he was grieving something he couldn't have. And that brought back a lot of those emotions. And he brought it back, right? And I said, I hope you didn't. I hope you didn't see it as something to make you uncomfortable, but as a way for you to deal with it. He said, I'm so glad that you brought it up because you're helping me to get into the core of something, right? So it was uncomfortable, and he was good enough, or he was gracious enough to tell me that he was uncomfortable and take that. But there may be certain people who may not, saying that I was very uncomfortable with what you asked me last time. But I will go back to that and say, okay, what made you uncomfortable? So it is okay. And it's good that if you're doing that, you're doing a good job. You're doing something good to help them to deal with something that maybe no one's brought it up with them. Okay? All right. Okay, we'll go for a break and then we'll come back.